Good to have you back. With your title and question agreed, this outcome is all about the plan, mapping the stages, writing a proposal, and choosing methods you can actually justify. A good idea is only half the battle. Now you have to work out how it'll actually get done. That's what a plan is. It turns your question into a sequence of manageable stages, each with a deadline. Picture a term-long project broken into reading, data collection, and writing, all mapped against the calendar. When nobody's chasing you day to day, that plan is what keeps you honest and on track. Every project moves through a recognizable set of stages, from question to finished report. They don't always run in a tidy, straight line. You might loop back and read more once your early findings surprise you. But knowing the stages lets you estimate how long each will take and spot where trouble might appear. Let's look at them in order. Here's the journey in 5 steps. First, choose and agree your topic, the title, aim, and question. Second, do your background reading. Third, plan the methodology, deciding how you'll gather and analyze data. Fourth, actually collect it, running your survey, your interviews, or pulling secondary data. And fifth, analyze, write up, proofread, and submit. Simple to list, but each step earns its place. A Gantt chart is your best friend for scheduling. Each task becomes a bar stretched across a timeline, so the order, length, and overlap of everything is visible in a single glance. The trick is to work backwards from the deadline, giving every stage enough room. And build in slack, because trust me, data collection almost always drags on longer than you expect. Within that schedule, set milestones, checkpoints that mark a stage as done, like proposal approved. The value of interim deadlines is that they catch slippage early rather than letting it all pile up at the end. Give yourself more time than feels necessary for collecting data and writing up. Then review your progress against the plan each week and adjust it rather than abandon it. Ask yourself early, what could go wrong and what will I do if it does? The common risks are painfully predictable. People ignore your survey, access gets refused, the data comes back thin, or you fall ill. So plan a plan B. Line up a backup organization. Keep secondary data ready as a fallback, and keep your sample realistic. A short risk list in your proposal shows the marker you've thought ahead. So what exactly is a research proposal? It's a short document setting out what you'll research, why and how, written before you start. It's the plan your tutor signs off, almost a contract for the project. It proves the work is focused, feasible, ethical, and worth doing. And honestly, writing it is useful in itself because it forces you to think the whole project through in advance. Let's see what goes inside. You'll have a working title and a short background that gives your rationale, then the aim, objectives, and your research question or hypothesis. After that, the methodology you're proposing and your main sources. And finally, a timeline, usually a Gantt chart, plus a note on ethics and risks. Those are the standard building blocks. Let me unpack those pieces a little. The background is a few sentences of context, and the reason the study matters. The aim and objectives give the purpose and the concrete steps to reach it. The methodology explains how you'll collect and analyze data with a brief justification. And the timeline and ethics section says when each stage happens and how you'll behave responsibly throughout. It helps to think of the proposal as a set of sections, each with a job and a rough length. The title is a single line. The background is one short paragraph, setting context and rationale. Aim and objectives sit as a bullet list. The research question is one line. Methodology is a short paragraph. Sources, a brief list. The timeline, a Gantt chart. And ethics and risks, just a few lines. Kept tight, the whole thing stays readable. Here's a finished example. Our e-commerce and independent shops project. The title asks how e-commerce has affected footfall and sales for independent shops in Bolton Town Centre. The background notes ONS data showing internet sales climbing, while the local impact stays under-researched. The aim is to investigate that impact with objectives to review the literature, survey 10 shop owners, analyze footfall, and recommend responses. The method is mixed, a short questionnaire plus 3 interviews backed by secondary data over a 14-week timeline with informed consent and anonymized responses. Ethics simply means treating your participants and their data responsibly. That starts with informed consent, people knowing what the research is and freely agreeing to take part. It means confidentiality and anonymity, protecting identities and personal data under UK GDPR. And it means no harm, avoiding distress, and taking special care with children or vulnerable people. State clearly how you'll act ethically. And remember, ethical approval must come before you collect any primary data. A quick vocabulary check, because 2 words get confused. Your methodology is the overall strategy and reasoning behind how you do the research. A method is the specific tool you use, a questionnaire or an interview, say. Primary data is new data you collect yourself, like survey responses. And secondary data is existing data others have gathered, such as ONS statistics. Strategy versus tool, fresh versus existing. Keep those pairs straight. Saunders and colleagues picture methodology as an onion, made of layers. You work from the outside in, philosophy, then approach, strategy, choices, and finally, the practical techniques. For a small Level 3 project, you focus mainly on those inner layers, the actual methods. But the model is a useful reminder that your method choices always sit inside bigger assumptions about knowledge itself. 2 broad styles of research here. Qualitative work deals in words, meanings, and experiences. Think interviews, focus groups, and open questions. It gives rich depth from smaller samples, though it's harder to generalize. Quantitative work deals in numbers and measurable variables, surveys, structured questionnaires, statistics. It handles larger samples and compares easily, but it can miss the why behind the figures. Neither is better. They answer different kinds of question. Often, the smart move is to combine the 2. Mixed methods might pair a survey with a handful of interviews, giving you breadth from the numbers and depth from the reasons. It also lets you cross-check findings from more than one angle, which is called triangulation. Which way you lean depends on your question. How many, or how much, points to quantitative, while why, or how, points to qualitative. Let's weigh up the main ways to collect data. Questionnaires are quick, reach lots of people, and compare easily, but response rates can be low and answers shallow. Interviews give rich detail and flexibility, though they eat time and are fiddly to analyze. Observation captures real behavior but can feel intrusive. And secondary data, ONS figures, reports, company accounts, is cheap and large-scale. But of course, it wasn't collected for your exact question. You rarely study everyone, so you take a sample, a smaller group, drawn from the whole population. With random sampling, everyone has an equal chance, which cuts bias but needs a full list of names. Convenience sampling means whoever's available. Quick, but less representative and very common in small projects. Purposive sampling is deliberately picking people with relevant knowledge. Whichever you use, state your sample size, explain your choice, and be honest about its limits. Putting the methods side by side clarifies the trade-offs. A questionnaire is fast and handles large samples, but lacks depth. An interview gives depth and lets you follow up, but is slow and small scale. Observation records genuine behavior, yet the watcher can change what's watched. And secondary data is cheap and reliable, but never quite tailored to your question. There's no perfect method, just the right fit. Let's justify the mix for our e-commerce project. The plan is a short questionnaire to 10 shop owners, 3 semi-structured interviews, and ONS retail data behind it all. The questionnaire gathers comparable figures on sales and footfall quickly from a small group. The interviews explain the why, the owner's own strategies and worries, and the ONS data sets those local findings inside the national trend, reliably and for free. In one line, mixed methods give breadth and depth and allow triangulation, which suits the question perfectly. 4 ideas to keep in mind as you judge any method. Reliability asks whether repeating it would give consistent results. Validity asks whether it really measures what you claim it does. Bias asks whether anything, clumsy question wording, a skewed sample, has tilted the findings. And ethics, consent, confidentiality, honesty runs through all of it. No method is flawless, so the skill is choosing the best fit and openly admitting its weaknesses. Let's pull this outcome together. Planning turns an agreed question into ordered stages, with deadlines, milestones, and a Gantt timeline. You build in contingency for the usual risks, like low survey responses or refused access. A proposal sets out the title, background, aim, objectives, question, methodology, sources, timeline, and ethics. Your methods might be qualitative, quantitative, or mixed, and your data primary or secondary. And you justify every choice by fitting it to your question, while weighing reliability, validity, sampling, and ethics. And that wraps up our second outcome, where you've turned an agreed question into a workable plan and a justified methodology. The further reading points you to the well-known research methods guides, with Saunders and colleagues especially good on the Research Onion, along with official statistics sites for real secondary data. Pick 1 or 2 that match your own project and skim the relevant chapters. It'll sharpen your proposal no end. Next, we'll look at choosing and justifying the sources your whole project rests on.